Hi, Stefan Svartling here from Svartling Network. It's time for the second episode in my new svartlingcast video show. This show is more like a podcast where I'm talking about Apple stuff, apps and so on, and how I use apps and how it is to live in the post-PC era and so on. When I bought the iPad Air 2, I immediately felt that it was so light and very, very thin. So I decided that I don't need a smart cover anymore because I hold the iPad in my hands now, even when I'm writing and working with video editing and so on. So before with the iPad Air 1, I always had my smart cover as a stand and working with both my hands on the display. So the bezels on the iPad Air 2 is necessary for me because I want to hold it with one hand like this and work on the screen with the other. So I need to be able to hold it in the bezel at the side of the display. And also when I'm holding it in landscape mode, it's perfectly fine to have this bezel as you see here. It's perfect for my thumb to hold the device, and so I can use the other hand to work on the display. And the same thing with portrait mode. Then the bezels is a bit thin, but it still works. I can hold it like this and work with my other hand. So to me it's necessary to have these bezels, so I don't want Apple to make them smaller. If they want to make them smaller, they should be smaller at the top and bottom. But as I said, I like to have these wide bezels to hold it like this. But if Apple need to do them smaller, then they should do it on the top and bottom of the iPad. I've recently got a new interest, and that is podcast. I really like to listen to podcasts and so on. And to me, the earpods, the headphones that comes with every iPhone, is perfect for podcast listening. They don't irritate my ears. I can wear them for a very, very long time without even noticing that I have them in my ears, really. And I think the sound in these earpods is perfectly fine for podcast, no problem at all. And it's also very good to have a remote on the cable, so you can pause the podcast when you need to and so on. And these earpods is also very good to have in your ears when listening to podcasts when you're sitting in the same room as other people, for example your family and so on. And I have a favorite couch in the living room at home that I'm sitting listening to podcasts while working and writing and so on my iPad. Then these are perfectly fine to have in your ears because I can still talk to my family and listening to what they say and so on. So to me these earpods is perfectly fine for podcast listening. And because of my new interest in podcast, I decided to buy the best podcast app available for iOS. And all the reviews and score and so on says that Overcast is the best podcast app for iOS. And it's from the same developer that did Instapaper, the read later service. So this is a very well developed app. And it's called Overcast, as I said. And Overcast has some pretty nifty features. Of course you can subscribe to different podcasts and so on. But it has some other cool features. This app is free in the App Store, but if you want to have all the cool features, you need to do an in-app purchase. It's quite cheap. I think it's $4. And down here you can find some of the features you get when you buy this. Effects. And these effects is really good. For example, Smart Speed. Smart Speed makes your podcast listening faster and more effective because it removes all the silent parts. But every time someone talking in the podcast, it has the normal speed, so no different pitch on the voice and so on. So it simply removes the silent parts, and that makes you earn a lot of hours after some listening, because you can listen to the podcast much faster than usually. So this feature is really good. And also the change of speed down here, it's really good, works really well, because you don't hear so much difference on the voices, no change in pitch and so on. But I recommend to use the smart speed instead of that, and have the normal speed on in the speed setting. Voice boost is another really great feature. It normalizes all the voices, all the sounds in the podcast, so all people in the podcast talks with the same volume, so you don't get these peaks in sound as you usually do if you don't have that feature on. So with this feature, all the voices speaks in the same volume, and that's really useful. Another feature you get when you pay for this is to create playlists. You can do some auto playlists here. That is quite useful. You can do a lot of different settings. Of course, you can name it as you want, and you can choose which of the podcasts you want to have in the playlist. If you want to have all the new, all the ones you're listening to, and so on. And you can also select some of the podcasts as your favorites. So you, the playlist filter and sort the playlist after the ones that you want to listen to first. You can do a lot of different cool things in this playlist creation feature. Another cool feature is that you can search and find new playlists quite easy in Overcast, and you get recommendations from Twitter. If you connect your Twitter account to Overcast, you get recommendations from Twitter. So the podcast, your followers, the people you follow on Twitter and so on, all the podcasts they listening to, you can find here in the recommendations. And you can recommend a podcast yourself in Overcast, and that recommendation is not seen anywhere, so it's kind of private recommendation. But what happens is that you recommend these podcasts to other Overcast users, but they don't see that it's you that has recommended the podcast. So that's a pretty nifty feature too. So I like these features in Overcast. It works pretty good. So listening to podcasts is my new interest, and I like it a lot. It's like a hobby for me now. I'm listening to podcasts almost all the time when I'm not doing videos or some other stuff, but I try to listen to podcasts as much as I can now, and I think it's a good way to learn new stuff and so on, and also learn English. That's good for me because I try to be better at talking in English in my videos. So I think podcasting is very good. I think that's the future for radio and other stuff. So I like podcasts a lot. People often say that the iPad is only for consuming media, watching videos, play games, reading books and so on. And I really hate that, because these people doesn't know what they're talking about. The iPad is a complete computer. You can do anything on it, really. You can create all the content you want and so on. You can video edit, record video, you can create music, mixing music and use it for DJing. You can blog, really advanced blogging with scripts, automated scripts and workflows and so on. So the iPad is a lot more than a content consuming device, a lot more. And all that thanks to all the professional apps that is available for the iOS devices, iPhone and the iPad. All these apps makes it possible to create content very easily and very effective on, for example, the iPad. And that makes the difference from Android devices and iOS devices. Android doesn't have these apps that is needed to create content. So to me, Android devices, for example, an Android tablet, is just a device for consuming media, nothing else. It's for fun, consuming media, and doing some hackings and theming and customizations and so on. The iPad and iPhone is meant for creating content and also for content consuming, of course. To me, it's very easily to be productive and effective and create content on the iPad. No difference at all from a desktop computer, for example. In some ways, it's even easier to create content on the iPad than it is on a computer. And that is also thanks to the better apps on the iPad. Some apps on the iPad is not available on a desktop computer. And the way iOS works with extensions and the share sheet and so on, it's much easier to do stuff on and than it is on a desktop computer. So I would like to show you how I blog on the iPad. And this is the way I blog for real, so it will be quite advanced, and maybe I don't show you everything because it will take time to show everything in detail, but I will try to do my best. So let's say that I want to blog about this article. I open it in my favorite newsreader app called Nuzzle. I open the article there, and of course I have read it and so on. I think it's great and all that. So now I want to blog this. Then I have to open it in Safari first because I have some stuff in Safari that I need. So I click on this share sheet extension, open in Safari, and the app opens in Safari, and I don't have the best internet connection here, so it takes some time to load the page, but here it is. Then I first save this photo to the iPad, and then I choose the best quote. I want to have a quote so I can blog about that. So let's say I choose this quote, this paragraph as a quote, like that. Then I go up here and use one of the excellent extensions that makes iOS unlimited. These extensions will be the best thing ever for iOS. More and more extensions will be available, and more advanced extensions every day. This extension I will use is called Clips. So I choose Clips down here, click on Clips. Now I have the paragraph that I want to quote in Clips. Then I have prepared a worksheet, a workflow in Clips. You can do this yourself, exactly how you want them formatted and so on. And I use Markdown for my blogging, so I've done a template for Markdown blogging, so I click on that. Then it formats this as a Markdown code. This code I copy and add to Clips. So now I have this in the clipboard and also in the app Clips. Very cool. Now I go out of Safari and into my favorite Markdown editor called Editorial. And the reason why I like Editorial is that it has some really advanced stuff you can do here. You can do real workflows using Python and JavaScript. You can do a really advanced stuff here. Automated blogging. It links to a specific word automatically for me and so on. So if I type Apple, it links to my Apple playlist on YouTube, for example. So I create a new note. choose Markdown, and then I go down to rows and paste in the code from clips, and before I start blogging here, I will see how this looks when it's done. So I do a Markdown preview, and as you can see, it's formatted beautifully here as a quote with a via link to the source, as you can see there. Now I go back, and here I want to blog something, so let's pretend that I just write some words here. Testing to blog on my iPad, like that. And now I want a link to my iPad playlist in YouTube, so I go back there, and as you can see here, when typing iPad as a word, I get a shortcut there, and the editorial links to my YouTube playlist about the iPad. So now I want to see how this looks when it's done. I go to preview again, and as you can see, testing to blog on my iPad, and the word iPad links to my YouTube playlist. Pretty nifty. Now we want to have the image down here after the quote, but before the source link. There I want to have the image that we saved. Then I need to upload the image to an image service, and I use the app Web Albums to do that. And I go in here to an album. Let's choose that. As I said, I have very slow internet here, but I choose upload all photos, and go down here to the photo I just saved, choose upload, and upload again. So now down here you see the image uploaded. As I said, very slow internet. Now it's uploaded. Then I click on it. So here is the image. Now I go up here and choose the copy link to image. So copy link to image. Now I have the image link in the memory, the clipboard. And now I go back to editorial. This is much faster when I do this without creating a video, but I hope you understand that. I want the image down there. Then I have created a workflow to add an image. So I start by doing a point image. As you can see down here, I get a shortcut to image. Click. Now we have the image here, but we don't want to have the image as large. We change that to 640. I usually do that on my blog, like that. So now we want to see how this looks. We go to a Markdown preview, and as you can see, my text at the top, what I have blogged about, and the quote from the web page, and then the image, and then the source link. Really beautiful. So now let's say this blog post is done. I have done everything I want to do. Then I go up here and choose copy HTML, only HTML. So now I have a formatted HTML code in the clipboard, in the memory of the iPad. So now I go into Safari again, and I go into my blogger account, and choose new post. Then I just paste this here. This is the HTML code, and then I write the title. Testing to blog with my iPad and hit publish. I don't want to publish this now, but I hope you get how I blog on the iPad. Really easy to do. I can do a blog post in just a few minutes. As I said, this take some more time when I did the video recording because I wanted to explain everything and so on, and I don't have the best internet here and so on, but I hope you get it, how easy it is to blog on the iPad with the right tools, the right apps and so on. Really easy. So that was it for this week's svartlingcast video show. I would like to have some feedback about this svartlingcast video show. Do you want to have them longer, shorter? How long do you want these episodes to be? How often should I post them? Is it enough with one episode every week? Or do you want them more often? Or do you want them to be just one in a month and so on? Tell me in the comments and so on. I need some feedback on this, because I saw that the first episode wasn't so many that watched, and very few people watched it, and those who did didn't watch so many minutes and so on. So I would really like to have some feedback if you like these shows at all, because it takes some time to do this, and I would not do them if you don't like them, of course. So please tell me what you think in the comments, please. Okay, bye.